Welcome all of you to Ecovision Academy. I hope all of you are doing really well. Today we are going to learn a very beautiful concept in international trade, that is the absolute advantage theory given by Adam Smith and the comparative advantage theory given by David Ricardo. Now, at first we are going to deal with the absolute advantage theory. What is absolute advantage? Absolute advantage means whenever a country is producing a commodity, it can produce that commodity with lesser time or with lesser cost in comparison to other country. Suppose if I say that India has an absolute advantage in the production of cloth, what does it mean? It means that India can produce cloth in comparison to Japan in lesser time or by lesser cost. India can produce cloth in lesser time or by lesser cost than Japan. Okay, and if I say that Japan has an absolute advantage in the production of steel, what does it mean? It means that Japan can produce steel in lesser time or by lesser cost in comparison to India. That is the concept of absolute advantage. Now, what is the theory? The theory tells us that if there are two countries, and say the two countries are India and Japan, and if there are the two countries India and Japan, India has an absolute advantage in the production of cloth and Japan has an absolute advantage in the production of steel, then both the countries should focus only on the production of their product of absolute advantage. By this way, the world will be benefited, the world trade will be benefited, and both the countries that are India and Japan, they will also be benefited. That is the crux or gist of the absolute advantage theory, that each country should specialize in the production of their absolute advantage product and they should export it in other countries. Now, coming to the comparative advantage theory. Look, if we actually focus on the absolute advantage theory, it tells us that each of the countries should focus on the product of their absolute advantage and export that. But if suppose India and Japan are there and India is having absolute advantage in the production of both the commodities, India is having the absolute advantage in the production of cloth as well as in the production of steel, then there is no point of India doing any type of trade with Japan. India will not be engaged in any type of trade with Japan. Then there will be no trade happening between India and Japan. In this case, comparative advantage theory is a very dynamic aspect that is being added to the international trade by David Ricardo. Comparative advantage theory tells us that each country should produce that product in which they has a comparative advantage and should not produce that product in which they have a higher comparative disadvantage. Suppose India and Japan, two countries are here, and India is having higher comparative advantage in the production of cloth and Japan is having higher comparative advantage in the production of steel. Then both of them should produce then India should produce cloth as they are having higher comparative advantage in the production of cloth, and Japan is having higher comparative advantage in the production of steel. So Japan should produce steel and both of them should be doing trade among each other. In this way, comparative advantage theory is telling us that every country should produce the product of their comparative advantage and do the trade according to that. Now, how to calculate this absolute advantage and how to calculate this comparative advantage, how to calculate the opportunity cost, which will be discussed in the detailed playlist of international trade that will be soon launched by Ecovision Academy. Stay tuned with Ecovision Academy to learn such interesting concepts at a short point of time. Thank you.